You're listening to The Globalist, first broadcast on the 12th of November 2025 on Monocle Radio. It's 20:37 in Wellington, 8:37am in Zurich, 7:37 here in London. Now, New Zealand is to stop direct funding to the Cook Islands in the South Pacific. It follows a decision by the islands to sign several partnerships with Beijing. And I'm joined now by Geoffrey Miller, geopolitical analyst with the Democracy Project in New Zealand. A very good evening to you, Geoffrey. Thank you for staying up for us.
Good morning, Emma, in London, and good evening from New Zealand.
Good to have you with us. So what exactly has happened between the Cook Islands and New Zealand and China? Where do we want to go first? Let's do Cook Islands and China. What have they agreed on?
Oh, look, this story's been going on all year, but basically what happened was that the Cook Islands signed a comprehensive strategic partnership agreement with China back in February and a number of other agreements. And New Zealand has really not been happy with this situation because Cook Islanders are New Zealand citizens, and the Cook Islands are officially a self-governing state in what's called free association with New Zealand. So there is a special constitutional relationship. It is complex, though, and there's an agreement that goes back to 2001 that was signed between New Zealand and the Cook Islands that says that the Cook Islands are also a sovereign and independent state and have the right to sign treaties, albeit with some consultation with New Zealand. So it's all a bit of a mess, but there's a big personal dispute really between the Cook Islands Prime Minister Mark Brown and the New Zealand Foreign Minister Winston Peters, who's handling this issue.
So is it personal, or is this just the wider issue that, as you say, the Cook Islands has within its power the ability to sign agreements with different countries, but this has not been done in the case with China, has it?
Indeed, look, it's ambiguous, this agreement that goes back to 2001. It's called the Joint Centenary Agreement because it marked 100 years of the Cook Islands being a New Zealand colony. And it's all quite a strange situation, the way it ended up, the way that New Zealand ended up as a colonial power in the Pacific and then decolonised the likes of the Cook Islands back in the 1960s. And the Cook Islands this year marked the 60th anniversary of that agreement with New Zealand from 1965. But New Zealand ministers boycotted the festivities. They sent just the Governor-General, who holds largely a ceremonial role. So there's a lot of bad blood between Winston Peters, the Foreign Minister, and Mark Brown, the Cook Islands Foreign Minister, as I said. Of course, there is a geopolitical, geostrategic level as well with all of this, because China and the United States really are in this great game for control of the Pacific. And Winston Peters, the New Zealand Foreign Minister, is very much on the side of the United States here and does not want to see China gain a further foothold in the Pacific. But Mark Brown really is running rings around Winston Peters, and it's all quite unedifying, is the way I see it. This spat has burst out into the public domain. It's been fought out through the New Zealand media all year, really, and both sides have been at loggerheads. And it's quite embarrassing, really, given that we are talking all about New Zealand citizens here. But the latest step in the whole saga was at the weekend when it emerged that New Zealand had withheld a further tranche of funding to the Cook Islands government. So it's withheld in total around about $17 million in funding. Now, that might seem like a small amount of money to many of your listeners in the context of global budgets. But we're talking about a population of 15,000 people on the Cook Islands. $17 million is actually a pretty significant element of the Cook Islands budget. So effectively, Winston Peters and the New Zealand government are trying to play hardball here with the strategy. They're trying to have a tough love strategy, and they want Mark Brown to buckle on this.
In having this very personal argument, are they missing the wider point, which is China is expanding its influence rapidly in the South Pacific? And when you look at what's been happening recently, you can just look at pictures of China and the Cook Islands this weekend wrapped up their first joint scientific expedition. They've been, and the South Pacific is an interesting place for the race for rare earths. So by narrowing it down to a row between two men, they are clearly missing a much bigger picture here, isn't it? Aren't they?
Indeed. Look, I mean, I'd see things a little differently, perhaps, to some of my colleagues. I would say that these are economic-focused agreements. And Mark Brown has been very clear that that's what these agreements are, and we can see that they are economic focused agreements. They're not defence and security related, as Winston Peters likes to make out. And I would also say that New Zealand has its own comprehensive strategic partnership with China signed back in 2014. Indeed, China is New Zealand's biggest trading partner China is New Zealand's biggest trading partner. So what is the problem we're trying to solve here? In a sense, now the Cook Islands are on the same page as New Zealand. There is actually a lot of room, I think, for cooperation, for trilateral cooperation in terms of economic development for the good of the Cook Islands, because I don't think this current strategy of playing hardball is actually that productive. And as we're seeing, as you mentioned, it is only driving the Cook Islands further into the hands of China. And because we're talking about chump change in the scheme of global budgets here, China can easily make up that $17 million US dollar shortfall if it wants to, and New Zealand is left on the outer. I think it would be much smarter for New Zealand to engage and work together with the Cook Islands, with China, and to try and find a way forward. But there's so much bad blood between these two men. I think you're going to need outside intervention, outside mediation, perhaps from within the Pacific Islands Forum. But also, I think the New Zealand Prime Minister, Christopher Luxon, probably needs to take more of a leading role. But he's left this very much up to his Foreign Minister, to Winston Peters, and the debacle seems to roll on.
Jeffrey Miller, thank you so much for joining us on the line from New Zealand. You're listening to The Globalist on Monocle Radio.